Michael Langford, a billionaire tech CEO, adjusted his cufflinks in the mirror of his sleek Manhattan penthouse. Tonight was his company's annual gala, the biggest event of the year. His assistant reminded him he hadn't picked a date yet, the kind of glamorous partner expected of a man in his position. But instead of reaching out to one of the socialites who had been vying for his attention, Michael's eyes drifted to the nanny. Lena sat cross-legged on the rug, reading a bedtime story to his 5-year-old daughter, Ella. Her calm voice, her presence, the way she gently tucked the little girl in, it stirred something deep within him. Without overthinking it, he asked, "Lena, would you come with me tonight?" She looked up, startled. "To the gala?" He nodded. She blinked, unsure whether he was serious. "A nanny? At a black tie event?" That evening, as they walked into the dazzling ballroom at the Ritz-Carlton, the atmosphere shifted. Conversations slowed. Eyes turned. Lena's thrift store gown didn't match the glimmering designer dresses around her. People whispered behind champagne glasses. Some smirked. One board member scoffed openly, "Is this a publicity stunt?" But Michael held her hand with quiet confidence. He knew why she was there, and soon, everyone else would too. Later in the evening, as he stood on stage delivering his annual address, Michael paused mid-sentence. His voice softened. Then he called Lena up beside him. "This woman," he said, "is the reason my daughter still smiles. She didn't just care for Ella. She saved her." He told the crowd how Lena had stayed up all night when Ella had a seizure. How she comforted a grieving child when Michael was too lost in his own pain after losing his wife. How she taught him how to be a father again. People wiped away tears. For the first time, they saw not a nanny, but a woman whose quiet strength had held a broken family together. After the speech, Lena was flooded with admiration. A wealthy guest offered her a high-paying role as a private family consultant. She smiled graciously, and declined. "I'm honored," she said softly, "but I belong with Ella. She's not just my job. She's family." The next morning, sunlight streamed through the windows of Michael's home. At the kitchen table, over coffee and giggles from Ella, he handed Lena an envelope. Inside was a new contract, not only naming her as Ella's guardian if anything ever happened to him, but also appointing her co-founder of a new childcare foundation in her name. "You reminded me what truly matters," he said. "Now let's remind the world." Ella ran up and wrapped her arms around Lena's waist. In that moment, no one was thinking about wealth or titles. Just three people who had found something rare and real, a family built not on blood, but on loyalty, compassion, and love. As the sleek black car pulled up to the entrance of the Ritz-Carlton, Lena took a deep breath. She had never been to a place like this, the towering chandeliers, the velvet ropes, the endless red carpet. She stepped out, her second-hand dress fluttering in the evening breeze. Michael stepped out after her, adjusted his tuxedo, and offered his arm. "Ready?" he asked gently. Inside, the ballroom buzzed with power and polish. Executives, celebrities, and high society elites mingled beneath golden lights, sipping champagne. Conversations dimmed as Michael and Lena entered together. The whispers started instantly. "Is that the nanny? She couldn't even afford a real clutch. What is Michael thinking?" Lena felt the heat of their stares. Her thrifted dress suddenly felt tighter, her heels more awkward. But Michael never flinched. He walked beside her, proud and calm, engaging in polite hellos with guests as if nothing was unusual. One of the company's board members, a woman who had once openly pursued Michael, approached with a raised eyebrow and a smirk. "Interesting choice of date tonight," she said, letting the words hang in the air. Michael replied coolly, "The best choice I could have made." As they moved on, Lena leaned in and whispered, "You don't have to defend me. I don't belong here." Michael stopped walking and looked at her, his voice low but firm. "You belong here more than half the people in this room. Don't forget that." For the first time that night, Lena smiled. Just a little. She straightened her shoulders. Let them whisper. Let them judge. She had nothing to prove, and a child at home who thought she hung the stars. That was enough. The night wore on, laughter echoing through the ballroom as speeches began and champagne flowed. Michael stood at the podium, spotlight on him, delivering his annual address to a room filled with investors, journalists, and top executives. He spoke of milestones, innovation, and record-breaking profits. But then, he paused. His voice softened. There's one person here tonight who doesn't have a title or a stock portfolio, but who changed the course of my life. The room fell silent. Michael looked toward the crowd and raised a hand. Lena, would you come up here, please? Lena froze, caught off guard. Murmurs spread across the room as she slowly made her way to the stage, her heels clicking against the marble floor. Her cheeks flushed, hands trembling slightly. Michael placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. This woman, he said, his voice steady but full of emotion, was there the night my daughter Ella had a seizure while I was stuck in a board meeting. The doctors said if she hadn't acted as fast as she did, things could have been much worse. He paused, swallowing hard. After my wife passed, I shut down. I buried myself in work. I didn't know how to be a father. But Lena, she showed me. She didn't just care for Ella. She brought my daughter back to life, and brought me with her. Gasps and sniffles rippled through the audience. She's not just our nanny. She's our anchor. Our family. Lena stood beside him, stunned, eyes glistening. People who had judged her earlier now stood and applauded, some wiping away tears, others looking genuinely ashamed of their assumptions. In that moment, Lena wasn't invisible anymore. She wasn't background staff. She was the heart of a family, and now, the heart of the room. And the world saw her for what she truly was, a hero in plain clothes. Later that evening, Lena stepped out onto the quiet balcony, needing a moment to breathe. The night air was cool, brushing against her skin like a gentle reminder that this wasn't a dream. Inside, the ballroom buzzed with praise and admiration, but out here, it was just stars and silence. She leaned against the railing, staring at the city lights below, until a voice broke the calm. You know, said a man in a sleek gray suit, people like you don't usually make it to that stage. He was one of the company's top investors, holding a glass of bourbon and an amused smile. I guess I'm just lucky, Lena said softly, not turning away. Or maybe just what this company needs, he replied. I'm serious. I've seen your heart, your story. I want you to join my firm, work with elite families, travel the world. 6-figure starting salary. You'd never have to change another diaper again. She blinked, stunned by the offer. A life of comfort. Luxury. Freedom. She looked down at her hands, the same ones that had rocked Ella to sleep, held her through fevers, wiped away tiny tears. And then she smiled. I'm honored, she said gently, truly. But my place is with Ella. She's not just my job. She's my heart. The man chuckled in disbelief. You'd give up all this, for one child? Lena looked back at the ballroom, where Michael stood, watching her with pride, and little Ella peeked out from behind his leg, still wearing her sparkly headband from earlier. I'd give up the world for her, she said. And with that, she walked back inside, not because she needed the spotlight, but because love had already given her everything she'd ever wanted. The next morning, golden sunlight poured through the tall windows of Michael's penthouse. The air smelled of fresh coffee and pancakes, and laughter echoed from the kitchen. Lena stood at the stove in her robe, flipping pancakes while Ella danced around the room in her pajamas, still buzzing from the night before. Michael entered, carrying a small folder in his hand and a warm smile on his face. He watched them for a moment, Lena humming softly, Ella giggling, and then stepped forward. Got something for you, he said, placing the folder on the counter beside her. She wiped her hands and opened it slowly. Inside was a legal document. Her eyes scanned it, confusion turning to shock. It named her as Ella's legal guardian in the event anything ever happened to Michael. And below that, another surprise, a signed agreement making her co-founder of a new non-profit foundation, the Ella Grace Foundation, dedicated to providing quality childcare and emotional support for single parents and caregivers. Lena looked up, speechless. Michael. I don't know what to say. He stepped closer, eyes sincere. You don't have to say anything. You changed our lives. I want to make sure you always have a place in ours. And together, maybe we can change a few more. Tears welled up in her eyes. Ella rushed over, wrapping her small arms around Lena's waist. Are you crying? She asked. Lena laughed through the tears. Happy tears, sweetheart. Very happy tears. Michael reached out and put his arm around both of them. They stood there, not as employer and employee, not as CEO and nanny, but as something far more meaningful. A family, built not by blood, but by love, trust, and quiet acts of devotion. In that warm morning light, with pancakes on the stove and hearts full of hope, a new chapter began, one that reminded them all. True wealth is found not in money, but in the people who stand by us when the world looks away.